Okay, impromptu tired video. Workbench is still a mess. Everything is still a mess. So yeah, basically, of course, every 6 months or so, life decides to just give me a good old elbow deep fisting. At least every 6 months. Sometimes I make it to a year. So basically, funnily enough, as soon as I order some new tools, I get laid off. And then, of course, the week after, the first time in ever, I see a deal on an oscilloscope locally, $300 for an old Ragal DS1054Z. It would cost me about double to get the DSO 800 series, the new one, so I picked that up, especially since it's the first proper scope I've had. I had an analog one a long time ago. And then that got frozen out in the garage and died. But that's not why we're here. We're here because of my hot air station. This is the first piece of equipment I ever bought with all of my big hundreds and hundreds of dollars over 10 years YouTube money. And it's been pretty good. Sigma R700, plenty of rebrands of these ones. It is basically the standard super cheap hot air rework station with a fan and a handle. Generally their performance is not that great in terms of temperature control and all that sort of thing. It's worked well enough. I've done a fair bit of SMT work with it. And it's not bad, but I'm upgrading my Hakko soldering iron. And I figured I would get a new rework station as well. So I went for one of these RF4 blower in the case style ones. So yeah, these things, frankly, it looks cool. It looks nice. I like the kind of messy. It obviously doesn't make any fucking sense, but I like the blue. I like the styling of this thing, and it is a proper squirrel cage blower in the box, heater in the handle type hot air rework station with some preset settings. This one doesn't have a cold function, unfortunately. Some of the other ones have a foot switch on the back to turn off the heater entirely. This one will only go down to 100 degrees, same as my old one, but I figured it would probably be a nice upgrade. Now it's, it seems roughly about the same amount of airflow. It's kind of hard to tell. But without anything on the handles, they seemed like a comparable amount of airflow. The pictures for it show the type of tip that have a screw to tighten on, but that's not actually the case. So these are two comparably sized ones. These just slip on like that. They don't have the locking tab like this one does, but this does go on quite a bit easier than this style does. And this will be easy to sort of change while it's still fairly warm. This one you have to let it cool down quite a lot, and it's better than a screw, but it's not a nice experience. Whereas this one is quite a lot better. Cord length is pretty similar between the two of them. Obviously, this one is just a small cord to power the fan and everything. This one has the bigger tube. So this one's actually going to be a little less convenient. I don't love that it comes off the side, but it should have better static pressure. So once these tips are on, it should have better airflow than this older one. It also is a much less annoying tone than the Sigma R700. It's a lot less high-pitched. It should be nicer for filming. It should be less annoying. Yeah, I don't know. Just should be better. My sleep has been completely inverted lately. Because why would I bother staying awake when I have no reason to exist in the world? So I've just been awake all night constantly. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and plug it in, turn it on. It did come with really nice packing material, really nice big box, really nice, good, soft quality foam. Way better than whatever this came in. This just came in the white foam from what I remember. But this came in really quite nice packaging. Pretty good shipping time off AliExpress. I can't remember what the price is, but it wasn't too bad. This was not as much of a necessary upgrade as my old soldering iron, but that'll be a topic for another video. This one does beep a fair bit, which isn't, you know, isn't the best. And you can't set any of the settings while it's in the cradle like you can on this one. But I do have it set to 100C. I do have it set to maximum fan speed, so let's just do a subjective. Sorry, I should turn off the scope there. I'm going to fan mod that. So this is the old one. And our new one. It's kind of hard to say. I think it's a less annoying tone. It's still kind of high-pitched. So the one thing, you might be able to see the lights are flickering. This one makes the lights flicker whenever the heater runs. It's incredibly annoying when I'm using it. And it also looks like this one is making the lights flicker. So it looks like it's just a problem with my lights. That is too bad. And then, yeah, just in terms of airflow. Okay. And that is 100% airflow. That's not bad. I don't have a way to measure it, unfortunately. That is much more airflow. Without the tips on, it didn't seem like it, but that is, I think, quite a big improvement. It's much more focused. Even though the tip is the same size, this is spreading the heat out a lot more. And then this one is a much more focused feeling in the hand. Obviously now the hose can kink, and it's got a bit of a kink from shipping, which will probably take some time to wear out. I was going to say it feels less than 100, but that's because I can have it much further from my hand before it actually feels hot, just because it is more airflow. So I think it's going to be a nice upgrade. Obviously there's not going to be much to see inside this one. It did come with more tip sizes. It's got, actually I think I just got duplicates. It did have, oh no, same set, sorry, I think I just have some duplicate tips for some reason. I also have a spare heater for it. So I'd say they're pretty comparable in terms of tips, in terms of reach. I would say the sound for this one is definitely better. It's not actually the world of difference that I thought it would be in this one, but it is a more pleasing fan sound quality, and it's also more consistent. And again, this has a little squirrel cage blower in it compared to this one, which is just going to be a little edge fan. That's not going to be great. This one does beep. I don't know why, but that's too bad. You can switch the handle to go on either side if you want. But the one thing I did notice, there's something a little loose on this one. Yeah, this hose likes to kink too in there, and then I think it's just, I wonder if I'm just hearing some spare loose wire in this. The other thing, that's one thing, I'm wondering how hard it would be to extend this, just so you had more reach. But that's actually pretty good, even though it's coming out the side. Again, it would be nice if it was coming out the front. That would mean it takes up a little less space, but there's not much you can do about that. Also, I forgot to lock my tripod, so I don't know how much that was moving around. But let's go ahead, pull this thing apart, see what's loose, and just have a look on the inside of it. On their renderings, they have this whole focus design and concept thing actually in the injection molding of the blower fan, which I am curious if they actually did. Again, so I'm ordering, or I have on the way, and I did order, a newer soldering iron that uses JBC clone tips. So it is the proper sort of integrated cartridge ceramic heater versus the older Hako 936 and 907 handle style one. And I think that's going to be a significant notable upgrade for whenever I want to do any electrical work. For the hot air side of things, I think this is more... I just felt like upgrading because I was upgrading one part of my setup. I don't think this thing's going to be a huge difference, although having the 3 presets will be nice, because I do like to have my soldering iron just at the lowest temperature setting sometimes for doing heat shrink and stuff like that. Or just like drying isopropyl alcohol off of something that I was cleaning. So having a preset for only 100 degrees will be nice. It'll be a lot faster to switch between than holding the buttons on this. That's basically as fast as that goes. This one, when you're adjusting temperature, it starts off a little slower and then starts ticking up. But again, having presets will mean I can just quickly change between temperature and fan settings. This isn't a nice, quick 801 or whatever Rossmann likes to use and sell. I was going to maybe get one of those, but the US dollar to Canadian dollar, you know, it just sucks. And then there's shipping price on top of that. Just not something that I could really afford. It's a pretty basic construction there. Ah, no, they are using a different fan. Oh, so it is just so loosely shock mounted that it, that's a lot of movement in a shock mount for a fan, holy. Then we just have a sort of standard transformer that's then leading to a DC regulator, and then just one main board controlling the whole thing. It looks like we have a relay for controlling the heater. But not a... That's gotta be... No, they gotta be using a MOSFET, because that wouldn't make sense to be using a relay for that, and I didn't hear any clicking for doing PID. But that is a different fan from what they use. There we go, we can see. They advertise a significantly different blower fan from what's actually inside there. I mean, that is, I would say, potentially misleading advertising. That thing looks like it would have much more airflow than this. But it is using a 4-wire fan, so it will be able to monitor if the fan stops spinning. So let's test that. Let's see if it kills the heater when the fan goes off. Okay, so we have the hot air station turned on. It's only at 100 degrees. That fan is really moving. I'm not gonna try and stop that while it's in use. I'm gonna stop that while it's not spinning up. And let's see if it gives us an alarm. Okay, look, it tried to heat it, and then it noticed that it is, the fan's not spinning, and it's not heating the heating element in the handle when there's no fan RPM detected. It smells a little extra hot, maybe? But that might just be the heater seasoning in. I really haven't run this thing much at all. But it does look like it doesn't apply heat to the heating element when the fan doesn't spin. So that's a good safety element. That's nice to see. It's got this weird thing when you switch it off when the power supply on the back here seems to spool up a little bit. And then we can see that on the light when I turn it back off. The capacitors kind of charge up and discharge again once or twice, depending how long it's been running. So that's a little bit of an odd quirk, but I'm just going to have this on all the time anyway, sitting on my bench. Yeah, it seems like probably... I don't know if the early units that shipped out have that sort of pink style or that turquoise style fan in it. Quite a lot of empty space in this thing, but it seems pretty good. And yeah, just a bundle of wires going in to the handle that are just running along inside this tube. So I think if you wanted to expand this and you could find a similar tube, you just extend the wires a little bit, use something with a suitably heavy gauge so you're not getting a lot of voltage drop to the heating element. But that's pretty good. Yeah, so I'll be getting rid of this thing. I'll be giving it to my buddy for $20 or something like that. That way he has a hot air station if he wants to do any sort of SMT stuff. Again, it's also just really nice for doing heat shrink tubing. The other nice thing is that you won't be able to block the heating element. So if I block airflow off, we can see it's still holding temperature. So I think this one probably does also have some protection. I'm not going to stick a screwdriver in here. I think I'd actually have to pull the handle apart to test to see if that works without a fan. But yeah, that is my new station. Again, not a great video, just sort of a new equipment thing being covered quickly. If people want a more in-depth look at the circuit board or anything like that, I can certainly take it apart again. But I have spent an entire week basically sleeping at 6 p.m., waking up at 1 a.m., and then living off only energy drinks all day. I'm not really in a great state to do a full in-depth review on something anyways. But again, just sort of a quick coverage on this RF4H2 hot air station. I do wish that it had a switch to kill the heating element, that we could have completely cold air come out of it. But I think that this is a good incremental upgrade over the Sigma R700. Again, if you're looking at using like a JBC clone iron versus the old Hakko 936, which is a pure resistive tip, I think that's going to be something I notice a lot more in day-to-day use. This thing I think will be a little more annoying to use because it's got the big tube compared to the small cord, but the presets are going to be really nice. Higher static pressure, much more airflow capability out of this one. I still think it's a good upgrade if you have an old Sigma R700. But if you're not doing a lot of SMT stuff, I'd say it's not worth it. I'm going to be doing a lot more SMT stuff. I've got some board designs that I am working on. If I can find it. I've got a project where I basically used a Pro Mini, and then I did some SMT components, but I have a variant of that designed with the actual microcontroller on the board and a switch mode power supply setup. This is a whole other thing, but I'm going to be doing potentially a lot more SMT work if I start producing these as a product, so that was something I thought was worth upgrading. So that's my new hot air rework station. In a week, maybe we'll have a video on my new soldering station. Okay, tried to do a little bit extra. One last thing, the video I thought of doing. It's like fifth take now, basically. A drag race between the two of these, because this Sigma is supposedly only drawing 650 watts, while this is supposed to be rated up to 1,000 watts. I have them both set to 100% fan speed and 350 degrees Celsius. Now I did try at 50% fan speed, and they both seem to hit 350 at the exact same time. It seems like this one updates the temperature a little slower. Maybe it's probably trying to be a little more accurate than this one is. But it's still curious that they both hit 350 at the same time at 50% fan speed. The other thing is that this is much more secure grabbing the iron than this one. This one I'm knocked off a few times, and it's just turned on. So that is a nice thing. But let's do a little drag race between the two of them. See if that extra 1,000 watt versus 650 watt results in faster speed up time up to 350 at 100% fan speed. That, again, was at basically the same time, but this one lags behind a sec. So I'd say between these two, you're actually not really seeing any notable difference in warm-up time, but that is assuming that the Sigma R700 is actually correct on its sticker on the back saying it does draw 100%. Or 650 watts, not 1,000 watts. Fuck me. We could also look at things like measuring temperature. I don't have a dual K-type thermocouple meter. And honestly, I don't care that much about this. I still think this is going to be a big upgrade, but like I said initially, this isn't going to be worlds of difference like getting a newer type soldering iron is. This is much more of an incremental upgrade. Obviously more airflow, better static pressure, temperature warm-up time, and accuracy probably close enough when you're dealing with hot air stuff. Probably not a significant difference between the two of them. And my buddy's coming over to grab this. If people are really interested in this, and I mean I get like several thousand views on the video, and I see quite a few people saying, hey, we would like to see temperature characteristics profiled, then I can borrow this back from him, and I will figure out a way to measure two of them at the same time, or I will log both of them and compare them. I'm not going to spend a couple hours on this right now. So, and yeah, as I thought, this is quite a bit more in the way of getting to power supplies and things like that with the tube coming out the side. It makes it take up more bench space than it needs to. Would be nice if it came out the front here or something like that. As you can see, I had to stack my soldering iron on top of there. It might be the sort of thing where I move the holder, because the holder does lock onto it. I might move the holder up to like somewhere like here, out of the way. That way it's actually sort of pulling the tube up off of my desk. That'll make it take up a little less space, and that means it's going to kink less than when I have it like out here like this, or if I put it around back here. I don't want to have like a long-term kink in the hose, and then when I'm pulling it out, it hooks on the power supply. It'll require some rethinking of my desk infrastructure setup. But it's also entirely possible that maybe I'll put my oscilloscope over by my power supplies, and then I'll have my soldering stuff to the left by the fume extractor. I just threw the oscilloscope there because it kind of fit, but we'll see when I get the new soldering iron to how much space that kind of takes up, because the control unit is smaller than this one, so we'll be looking forward to that.